Amerikan doları civarında olduğunu söyleyebilirim. Ve bütün projeler, onaylanmış olanlar ve finanse edilenler bankamız tarafından hükümet garantisi altındadır. Buna ek olarak da 14 milyar Amerikan doları yine ülkesel olmayan operasyonlara
by our private sector operations department when they provide loans to private entities without government guarantees. Another type of figures I just wanted to share with you is about the amount of consulting services. Last year, Adb provided about $200 million for consulting services that Adb administers. That means that Adb does recruitment of consultants and manages those contracts. And we finance on average about 4,000 contracts with individual consultants and more than 200 contracts with firms. Of course, we also have a lot of contracts with the contractors, which are for civil works, for EPC type of contracts. It's difficult to share the exact value of those contracts because any given day, we may award big contracts for 100 million or so $200 million, and the statistics will change. But there is a big amount of Adb financing allocated under every project for financing infrastructure-related contracts. In addition to Adb administered consulting services, I just wanted to share with you that you have to keep in mind there are many consulting opportunities under Adb loans where borrowers do procurement and basically they hire and administer consulting services. And what we see lately from our portfolio trend is that since we have more and more complex projects that are being processed, we need a combination of very good experienced consulting firms, but also very good contractors who can manage quite a large and sometimes non-traditional types of civil work contracts, right? Regarding the business opportunities, we also understand that some of the large contractors, they have offices in many countries, and I hope some of you have offices in countries where Adb operates, and those large contractors usually monitor very closely all those opportunities because they are published on Adb website, and they may be kind of fully aware of what is coming up in the next few months' time. But for consulting firms, since their scope of operation may be a bit smaller, and not all of them can have representation offices in different countries, and therefore I would encourage you to have maybe one or two staff to be kind of responsible for weekly monitoring of consulting opportunities. Right. Another thing which I wanted to share with you is that competition is increasing, not only among consulting firms, where we see more and more of them creating associations or consortia to submit their bids, but the same is happening even in the civil works contracts, especially plant contracts where it's a turnkey contracts where contractors are involved in the design of the facility, construction and installation of equipment. We see even big contractors, they try to associate with the smaller companies in order to increase the chances of them winning their bids. So today we will be focusing on your request on Adb's operations in three sectors. Transport and energy are traditionally the two largest sectors in Adb portfolio. Transport was always number one, energy was always number two, and of course you can understand from, say, $100 billion portfolio, maybe 60% of that belongs to these two sectors. Therefore, there are many opportunities for contractors in these two sectors. But we should also not underestimate the importance of the health sector, especially as we see the impact of COVID. So all three sectors have been affected by this COVID pandemic, but in different ways. You all probably know very well that because of the pandemic and the travel restrictions, where neither contractors nor consultants can travel to the field, many big contracts were put on hold. So this is very big negative impact on our borrowing countries and also on contractors themselves, because there is no certainty when the works would resume. So that was a very big challenge, and I would say maybe for 1 year or so, there were no activities in the field. But now I see some improvements in terms of easing some travel restrictions in some countries. And many contractors resume their work, maybe with the less inputs in the field, but they're still allowed to come to the countries. And as long as they comply with certain protocol requirements related to health and safety, so they can work in the field. Of course, not in the same way as we would normally expect, but we still see some good improvements in this area. And we hope that soon all those restrictions will be lifted and the work will go back to normal. Regarding health sector, of course, the size of that sector in ADB's operations was not very big, but during last 1 year, ADB has approved many projects in the health sector in several countries. And of course, there will be different types of opportunities under those projects. First of all, of course, these projects will be used to procure vaccines and to help governments to administrate vaccine in the country. Secondly, there will be a lot of activities related to rehabilitation or upgrading health facilities, especially in the remote areas, which were not prepared for this kind of pandemic. And thirdly, there are projects where the main effort will be to help countries develop longer-term agile strategies in the health sector, so that they're prepared for similar type of big pandemic events in the future. So there will be opportunities in the health sector as well. In civil works, as I said, rehabilitation, upgrading of health facilities, in supply of some medical equipment. So you may also look at those opportunities on our website, and we have included a new filter. When you search, you can enter COVID-19, and then it will show all projects related to COVID-19 and ADB operations. So what I would also like to emphasize, some of you perhaps are performing the role of construction engineers. As I said, because of more complex projects, we see increasing need from the borrower side to improve consulting services. Traditionally, we would expect the consulting firms to be involved in project preparation and then project implementation, like monitoring. But now we see many countries are requiring consulting support in more technical expertise, such as preparation of detailed design, doing different surveys and studies as part of the preparation of detailed design, and also construction supervision. So this is where consulting firms act as engineers on behalf of the employer. So many of you perhaps are very familiar with this role, and I just wanted to emphasize that there is an increasing demand in these type of services. Right. Of course, you all know that we used to have these kind of business opportunities seminars face-to-face, and we like that approach because we could have more close interaction with all participants. Unfortunately, due to COVID, we cannot do this in that in-person physical format, and we will continue organizing virtual events. But despite of that, we see quite a big interest from different ADB members. So we had about 34 business opportunities events last year, and we will have the same number probably this year. So it shows that there is interest from the business community. And from our side, we are also interested to maintain our relationship despite of the pandemic. Because as you perhaps know, we rely on the expertise and support from contractors and consultants in basically the entire project cycle, from the identification, preparation of the project and its implementation. whether it is contractors who build some facilities or consultants who supervise and provide engineering support. We rely on that expertise. So I hope today's seminar will be very helpful for you. I hope you will better understand how ADB operates and how to find business opportunities. And most importantly, I hope that as a result, you'll have higher chances to win contracts and will be happy if you get contracts under ADB projects. So I wish you a successful seminar today, and I will stop here and maybe hand over back to our organizers, Mr. Bashar or Mr. Hassan. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let me take the floor from you. I thank you so much with all the remarks you have made, the general remarks regarding the pandemic and specific advices like for our membership, like weekly monitoring what's going on the internet site of the ADB type of suggestions and advices. We're very welcome. You're right, traveling is the biggest issue, and as you say, resuming to normal working is all our wish in the coming days. That's why we are trying to get ourselves prepared for those very active days. So as Mr. Ariol already mentioned, our membership portfolio is heavily construction companies, although they have some investments in various areas. So when we pick up these three topics, these are the main topics or sectors, as you already mentioned, that transportation, energy, and health is the ones they have activities or investments or interest. They all like transportation, infrastructure, energy infrastructure, or like a health or other facilities in health sector. So that's going to be very interesting. And I stop here. Thanks once again to you for all the remarks you have made and the advices. And according to the program, I will kind of offer the floor to Mr. Bertrand Golu for his remarks on transportation sector, transportation infrastructure. Bertrand, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hassan, and good morning to all. Happy to be here with you. My name is Bertrand Goualou. I am a principal transport specialist in the Sustainable Development and Climate Change Department in ADB, and I am a lead for urban transport and railways activity in the transport sector group. Let me just briefly introduce myself. My background is transport engineering and urban planning. I joined ADB 10 years ago, worked in operations, supporting our developing member countries in designing and implementing sustainable urban transport solutions. So I guess I am somewhat familiar with the procurement and what it takes to develop large size transport infrastructure projects. And prior to joining ADB, I worked in a transport engineering consulting firm for 10 years in planning and in construction supervision, playing the engineer role that Rustam just mentioned. So maybe like most of the ADB colleagues you will see today, I've been in a project implementation side, so I can easily relate with your perspective. Next slide, please. So that is how we are looking at the transport sector in ADB when supporting our DMCs and the private sector clients. Low carbon, safe, accessible, affordable transport system and services. We could also add a flavor of efficiency, innovation, climate proofing, and sustainability of operation and assets. So very ambition, and ambition is what our next slides are all about. Next slide, please. Transport investment by subsectors, lending volume and trends. So we'll not go into all details of this slide, but transport is a little bit less than 1/3 of ADB sovereign lending volume. The share of each subsector is fluctuating depending on the year. This comes from the fact that we are often talking about large projects, and such projects have a huge impact on the overall volume. All told, road projects are now down to below 50%, and it is deliberate. The intention is to scale up urban transport and railway projects in our portfolio. We can also see here the changes in the portfolio breakdown since the early 90s. And again, urban transport and rail projects are in green, orange, and again, clearly increasing. Next slide, please. The overarching target of Adb Strategy 2030 is to build a prosperous, inclusive, resilient, and sustainable Asia and the Pacific. And I guess it's no surprise that Adb is getting away from pure infrastructure finance and favor more integrated solution with high value addition. And that's a clear demand from our client countries. So we have 7 operational priorities in our strategy: poverty reduction, gender, climate change, livable city, rural development and food security, governance, and the last one is regional cooperation and integration. The transport sector is the only sector contributing to all of the 7 operational priorities. And other than operational priorities, strategy is looking at value addition through finance, knowledge, and partnership, including with the private sector, of course. And lastly, promoting innovative technologies as well as delivering integrating solutions are strong guiding principles of the strategy. So the main take for you here is certainly on value addition and innovative technologies and also integrated solution. So in case it is a competitive advantage you have in the sector, it's something you may want to make sure it's part of your bids and clearly put forward. Next slide. Here we see that transport as an enabler of development. And this is how it contributes to various dimensions of the Adb Strategy 2030, with again the operational priorities. So strong focus on maintenance and asset management for sustainability, including financial sustainability. So that's a major area for a transport project, of course. I would like also to underscore that the climate agenda and all the international agreements are placed at the center of our strategy. This is clearly an increased focus on supporting and developing climate-proof projects and resilient infrastructure. Next slide. So on this slide and on the next, we'll give you an indication of the type of project being implemented and upcoming in our regional departments. I also would like to mention that complete information on all Adb finance and Adb supported projects is available on Adb website, as Rustam mentioned, so adb.org. And you will find there useful information by country and by project. By country first, there is a document that is called Operation Business Plan for each country that is updated yearly. I think the name will change next year, but the spirits remain the same. So it's something that is agreed between the government and Adb in each country. So listed there are all the projects for approval in the next 3 to 4 years, and that include lending and non-lending products, which mean project loans, but also technical assistance. And again, this document is reviewed, not reviewed, but updated on a yearly basis. So it's particularly accurate at the beginning of the year in the first quarter, when the new version is disclosed. So that was per country. Now by project, you will find information on each Adb finance project and the procurement plans. So with a clear indication not only of the procurement strategy, but also of the contracts and packages. that also usually indicates the contract amounts and the procurement method and even a tentative advertisement dates. So that's a very strong source of information if you're interested in a particular country. And I also have to say that it's not just for transport, but for all sectors supported by ADB. So here in Central and West Asia, there is a focus on the CAREC program. So CAREC stands for Central Asia Regional Economic Cooperation Program, or the LACI could also stand for corridors. So there are large roads and railway networks being upgraded and developed in the region that follows these economic corridors. So basically you will have road project in almost all of the 10 countries of Central West Regional Department for ADB, and you will find rail projects in some of them. Uzbekistan, we are looking at rail also in Turkmenistan, Azerbaijan, also Georgia. So those are the main focus. There is also a focus on urban transport infrastructure and system improvement. Urban transport projects are supported in Georgia, in Armenia. In Pakistan, we have two large bus rapid transit systems that are led and financed by ADB. And some other projects are being developed in other countries as well. Next slide, please. So now looking at South Asia, you will see here that there is a clear shift in India, where ADB is supporting and financing more and more metro projects. Some of them are listed here. That include metro and commuter rail. I would take the example of the Delhi-Meerut rapid transit system that is currently being implemented. It's a large MFF, multi-tranche financing facility. And so you have, I think it's 3 or 4 tranches. So, and you have civil works contract that are advertised each time a new tranche is started. So you have, for now, the tranche 1 is being implemented and contract have been awarded. Tranche 2 is being processed and contract should be advertised soon. Just to take one example, so I will not take all of them. Rail is also strong in Bangladesh, as you can see. And like in other regions, so there are a series of technical assistance that are required either to develop the project or to support the implementation of the project. I will not come back to that. It has been explained to you already. Next slide, please. Here in Southeast Asia, so you have the different countries in the region. So clearly there are large projects in the Philippines being supported and implemented right now. So that's really something that you should consider in the region if you are looking at these countries. Philippines is probably the country in the region where you have the largest project. So Vietnam, when it comes to transport, is also strong, with also focus on urban transport project. The rest you can see on the screen. So I encourage you to consult the website for more detail. But really large contract and a very interesting perspective in the Philippines. Next slide, please. In East Asia, so East Asia is composed of consists of 2 countries, China and Mongolia. So in China, the type of assistance required from ADB is clearly on promoting inclusive growth and environmental sustainability. So we're talking about value addition and something that we'd like to bring there. support to public transport is also strong. In Mongolia, we are looking both at regional trade development and to enhance connectivity of this landlocked country. And we are also seeing some perspective in urban transport in Ulaanbaatar, but these projects are still very young. Next slide. So the last one is transport assistant in the Pacific. So you have here the Pacific island and countries that are supported by ADB. So different set of projects, of course. So we are not talking about the same issues that are dealt with by this country in terms of sustainable transport. So you will find basic transport needs, roads, rural roads, but also development of infrastructure and transport infrastructure in urban areas. Maritime infrastructure is also something that is supported by ADB and clearly needed in a region. So, of course, focus on trade and transport facilitation. Next slide. So here, I mean, you understood the key messages. So we have a subsector focus. Roads is still important. We said half of our portfolio is still road. But looking at it from a different angle, surely not just from the infrastructure delivery, but we talked about regional connectivity, asset management, and also road safety, which I omitted to mention, that is really cross-cutting and a strong component of all road projects supported by ADB. And rail urban transport, I could not underscore enough the new demand from the clients. And so when we are approached to by our clients to support transport projects, the logic and ambition is clearly not the same. Expectations are higher, and we value that our clients are chasing for innovation and for value added that ADB can support. So of course we are looking at new technology and uses. Maybe that's something I did not mention earlier, but that's equally important. Looking at emerging technologies and the use of data, the digitalization of the sector, e-mobility are areas that are, of course, of interest to our client and where ADB would like to play a role. Increase attention to private sector support, we mentioned that, and broader use of financial services to meet demand. So we are not interacting with clients that would only rely on sovereign lending to transform the transport sector in their countries. And again, all information is really available on ADB website. So whether you have one person checking all this on a weekly basis based on your interest, and was suggested before, but the information is there. So in a nutshell, increased focus on innovation, knowledge, integrated solution, and sustainability of assets. Railway and urban transport are both scaling up, including very large projects and creating new opportunities for contractors with experience in this subsector and able to deliver on comprehensive approach and integrated solution, because that's what our client countries are really looking at, and we value this type of approach. There is also a strong and increased focus on securing proper operation and maintenance and on asset management. So if that is the kind of project you are able to deliver as contractor or to contribute as consulting firm, you should be able to play a role. And our DMC would definitely want to receive your proposal and bids when they advertise some contract, and see you taking part of in the competition. So I'll stop here, and Hassan, let me turn it back to you. Thank you very much.
Bertrand, we thank you so much for all this comprehensive information. You have provided many information to digest, I think, and you have just summarized them in the key messages. I think all will be noted. So I stop here before I switch to the Q&A session. So I will keep my right reserved to pose some questions to you, though. And now I will kindly offer the floor to Ki Young Nam for his presentation on energy sector.
Thank you.
Nam.
Thank you. I hope you can all hear me now.
Yes.
So thank you very much. It is my pleasure for an opportunity to present about the energy sector operations from the, so on behalf of the energy sector group, I will do the, this presentation on the energy sector operations. Can we move to the next slides? So yeah, all this energy sector operations in ADB, it is guided by these principles, so to say 3 principles. One is the, kind of promoting the renewable energy and energy efficiency. And then second one is how we integrate to the advanced technologies and innovative business models and financing instruments. And then third one is related to the policy reform or enabling environmental and regulatory framework for effective market and sector development. All this is 3 guiding principle is on the top that under the umbrella of the, so to say, global commitments to the universal access and climate actions, which includes SDG goal 7, as well as the SDG goal 13 on the climate change. And then also the, Paris Agreement is nationally determined the contribution indices of the member countries. And then also in line with the Adb Strategy 2030 with the 7 operational priorities. Next slide, please. Yeah, I think Bertrand already mentioned about this, the 7 operation priorities. And on the left-hand side of that, you will see that how the energy sector, in particular from the clean energy development perspective, how we can contribute to the individual these operations priorities. So probably this I will not go into very much detail, but they are mainly from the energy access perspective, and then also the quality of the power supply or energy supply through more on the clean energy development. Next slide, please. So, overall for the past decade that we'll see the energy sector lending in terms of annual average share, about 22%, about 20% of the lending from the ADB lending is from the energy sector. And out of this energy sector lending, you see that about slightly more than 50% is clean energy. And while the rest, rest is 50% is on the mostly on the transmission and distribution, and slightly others. So from the clean energy, it is divided into the renewable energy promotion, which is more than about 60%, and energy efficiency is to 39%, while the fuel switching, cleaner fuel using that is just 1%. From the energy efficiency point of view, that this was for the last decade, it was mainly from the supply side, energy efficiency management, so to say. Next slide, please. So this is very briefly that we are having per year, let's say an average from 2011 about $4 to $5 billion of the sector lending. And from there, about 2 billion is the, so to say, we call the climate financing, which means that, clean energy development, so to say, clean energy investment. Next slide, please. In terms of lending by sub-regions in 2020, we have all the series, but the thing is here we are, looking at only last year's figure. And then you see that mostly it is coming from the, South Asia, led by India and Bangladesh. And then from the Southeast Asia is followed by Southeast Asia lending. And when you look at that, from the energy sector lending is mostly very little on the climate adaptation. Rather, it is more on the climate mitigation part of that. And obviously, we see that T&D side of the T&D composition, so to say, contribution on that one. Next slide, please. So in terms of outcomes from the operations, when we look at the progress of energy access, you see it on the graph that ADB has invested total of the 2 billion in the energy access and 10.3 billion cumulative from 2008 to 2020, and which has, so to say, supplied energy access to for the 10.3 million households in 2020. Which makes up cumulative 35.6 million households with energy access that ADB supported. When you look at the big jump from 2019 to 2020, energy access was more of the, due to the transmission and distribution projects in Africa, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, India, Indonesia, Myanmar, and Nepal. So to say, contributed to this upsurge. So, next slide, please. And from the, when we look at the climate impact of the energy projects, which we are, focusing on that, and then, we would like to have by 2030 that 75% of the total ADB lending or operation should be, linked to the, climate financing, so to say. So that, estimating the greenhouse gas emission reduction, we had in 2020, we are expecting with approved all the portfolio, 6.9 million tons of CO2 equivalent per year. And assessing the, so to say, climate change impact, we see that, 3.4 gigawatt installed capacity, additional renewable installed capacity, as well as which makes up 8.3 terawatt hour per year of the renewable electricity generation. And then through the efficiency improvement of the supply side in particular, so we have a 1.1 terawatt hour per year is of the electricity savings. Next slide, please. So from the energy sector knowledge work, so we are not only, because we are from the energy sector group, we are from the knowledge department, so to say. So that, we are not only doing the operations, but also we're doing the, knowledge work. So we produce all kinds of handbooks, case studies, guidance, notes, and then also, we listed down some of this handbook and some of the report that we have published. And also, we are doing some technical notes, op-ed, as well as blogs. And then workshops, forum, collaboration for dissemination activity of the knowledges that we have, so to say, knowledge that we got from the operation as well as our own studies, so to say, which includes also in collaboration with other, energy relevant international organizations as well as the financial institutions. And of course that, this knowledge work that we do also the pilot testing of the innovative technologies, so to say, so that we can replicate or we can scale up in the other DMCs as well. So currently we are also doing some of this, hybrid renewable to renewable pilot testing. And also, so other type of the distributed renewable energy systems in several DMC countries, which includes the Philippines, Bangladesh, Nepal, and even in Georgia in the Central West region as well. Next slide, please. So we are expecting over the next 2 years, this year as well as the end of next year, that we are expecting to have the similar composition. we're saying 48% clean energy and 52% transmission distribution. The reason why it is going down is, like from 50 to 40, slightly less, is because the market that the renewable energy itself is, the price is going down, in particular from the solar technologies. So so that is the and then but the thing is that we have also delays of certain, which Rustam mentioned, that due to these challenges of the COVID, that our field work, there is a field work constraints. So we are projecting roughly the average energy sector lending for this year as well as next year about 5 billion per year. And the proportion of the remaining 48, about 40–50% of the lending is from the clean energy aspects, in addition to the transmission and distribution of that. From having said that, this is not only the sovereign and but also the non-sovereign, but we are, so to say, facilitating, or we are encouraging we see that increases of the price sector contribution as well. So that will be that is included already in our projections as well. Next slide, please. So these are the kind of indicative energy projects which might interest you, is for this year as well until 2023. We have a various, but these are indicative, but it is in the pipeline of the projects, starting from the Afghanistan, Central West, South Asia and Southeast Asia, as well as East Asia and the Pacific. We see that, but these pipeline of projects are all more on the energy efficiency or promoting the renewable energy on that one. So even the next slide is, we continue. Next slide, please, with kind of indicative pipeline of projects that we do. So we're not looking at only the generation aspects of the installed capacity or energy efficiency, but from the we are also introducing in type of the kind of smart grid system and innovative technologies that we would like to put it up on that one. Next slide, please. So the way forward, how we're doing is certainly that we'll increase the clean energy investments, not only restricted to the, only the solar PV, onshore wind, or this kind of traditional renewable energy, but we are also looking at different type of that, like a green hydrogen, as well as we are also looking at offshore solar or floating solar, as well as offshore wind. And then other type of the renewable energy resources, so to say. So we are looking at that these technologies, and then also pretty much we should focus more on the demand side, energy efficiency, in particular from the like buildings or or the buildings or public buildings, or even the residential sectors, or even looking at the industry as well. So we are supporting more flexible, resilient, and smart energy systems. So supporting deployment of the ICT, digital applications, and also the energy storage in the transmission and distribution subsector. And we'll strengthen the multi-sectoral approach, so to say, along the sector nexus, so to say, energy transport nexus on the e-vehicles with e-charging stations, with a grid strengthening. And then also we have this water and agriculture and kind of food with the energy nexus on the irrigation, of using the clean energy, like solar pump system for the irrigation. And also the urban sector that we do focus on more on the decentralized energy system, using again with the clean energy. Next slide, please. Yeah, and then also for you, just the information that we are going to come up with, that we have this ready paper we submitted to the board. So we are expecting by end of October that we're going to have the kind of new energy policy, which has specified guiding principle, securing energy for a prosperous and inclusive Asia, building a sustainable and resilient energy future, engaging with the institution form and framing policy reform, and promoting the regional cooperation to enhance energy security, and cross-sector operation to maximize the development impact. So we are working on, and we will have by end of October, most likely that we'll have the kind of a new energy policy, which is updated version of the energy policy of ADB energy policy in 2009. With this, I would like to stop here and thank you very much, and look forward to receiving your questions and later. Thank you.
Now, on behalf of our membership, I thank you for this presentation. I understand that energy sector is very critical since you have a mandate to eradicate poverty and provide energy access to the region on the one hand, and just providing clean energy in compliance with the 7 operating priorities is another mandate that you have. So there is a delicate balance between those two. I think you will be receiving many questions since there is a rising trend on this clean energy thing and the carbon issue. So let's leave it all to the Q&A session. I thank you once again and offer the floor to Rui Liu for his presentation on health sector. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hassan. Can you hear me?
Yes, your audio and video is perfect.
Okay, thank you so much. So thanks so much for this opportunity to present the health sector group work, in ADB. By the way of introduction, my name is Rui Liu. I'm a health specialist in the Sustainable Development and the Climate Change Department of ADB. Next slide, please. So first, I would like to give you an overview in terms of what are the challenges and the major trends in the health sector in Asia and Pacific. So overall, if you look at the 40+ countries of ADB with ADB's operation, it's really represent a very diverse set. You know, most of this, as you know, most of the middle-income countries are small. Several have several small islands, and the urbanization rate of those countries, lower and middle-income countries, are slightly higher than the global average, being 44% compared to 40% of globally. And also, a major feature is that we face with very significant challenges from non-communicable diseases. So 66% of the Delhi, which is which represents the disease burden, come from the non-communicable diseases. If you look at the graph on the lower right, starting from the upper middle income countries, you can see a shift towards from communicable and the maternal nutritional issues towards non-communicable diseases, followed by a lot of middle income and the lower middle income countries. So this has been a trend. And overall in the region, we see also the progress of the Sustainable Development Goal 3, SDG 3, which is related to universal health coverage. Indicators, the progress also vary by country. So some low income countries and the low middle income countries are performing below the global average in Asia and Pacific. And even though some countries, I think we can see the out-of-pocket expenditure in the total expenditure is only 70%, which is lower than the global. However, a lot of countries are significantly higher at outliers. Next slide, please. So a very important feature to also look at the health sector, especially the business opportunities, is the private sector. So the private sector operation is very important in Asia and the Pacific. Many countries, just take an example of Indonesia. So 49% of the births were delivered in private in a private provider, and 44 in Pakistan. So yet for these private sectors, we still see that the needs to strengthen the stewardship and the regulatory capacity of the government, which is also very important. For the countries with ongoing structural reforms, we think it's very important to use the evidence to generate, to also engage the private sector and to implement the reforms. Taking the example of India through the introduction of the PMJ, which is the insurance coverage scheme for hospital care. We can see some impact on reducing out-of-pocket of individuals, and also the country through that is all reorganizing its urban primary healthcare services. And the Philippines is also providing, implementing financial and the provider integration through under the act of UHC Act of the Philippines, with very strong political commitment of the country. So we can also see that in many Asia Pacific countries, we still need to strengthen the budgetary spaces for executing and implementing health programs. So for example, we see in Thailand, Thailand has basically make a good case that the system, the health insurance is geared towards combating non-communicable diseases, high quality and integrated diseases. And Indonesia is trying towards the, moving towards that direction as well. In Vietnam, we can see that the coverage of social health insurance has been reached 88%, which is very high. However, this is also entails very high governmental subsidy. And yet, on one hand, we need to continuously strengthen the depths and the breadth of health services being covered under those service program. On the other hand, the financial sustainability becomes a question for us to think about. All of that is basically the overview of the health system. But now we are facing with the historical pandemic, COVID-19. Next slide, please. So basically, COVID-19 has made a case for our region for health. As we can see, it was such a big pandemic that affects everyone's lives. To help countries working on that, so ADB, from our side, we had supported the countries starting from last year on the non-pharmaceutical prevention interventions, such as lockdowns, and provided countries or members with protective equipment, personal equipment, etc. And when the vaccines become available early this year, ADB actually established a new facility, which is called a COVID-19 Asia Pacific Vaccine Access Facility, short for APVAX, with a grant of with a finance of $9 billion to support the procurement of vaccines and the delivery of vaccines to people's arms, as well as strengthening the healthcare systems around the vaccination work for countries. So now, as we look at all this developing Asia as a whole, we can see again the progress of vaccination varies quite a lot, range from less than 1% of the population being vaccinated to as high as 78% of the population being vaccinated. If you look at the graph on the right-hand side, you will see that, again, majority of the developing Asia will still below the world's average for vaccination. So we look at different reasons, such as, now there's an imbalanced supply and demand it was high demand, but not enough supply to the developing countries. We have been working on trying to help through our eligibility criteria, discussions, and through other channels, working with other agencies, such as a newly established COVAX mechanism to help bring in vaccines that are eligible for our financing to support the needs of countries. And moving on, we also see that there will be several front of needs being presented in developing Asia. That includes the health system strengthening, including the preparedness, building a resilient the system of resilience, hospital investment, such as in oxygen capacity, etc., and building also to strengthen the regional public goods for health securities. We know this as a public goods. It's not one country's business. We have to address these issues cross country, cross borders, and also we are also exploring the opportunities to support greater regional vaccine manufacturing. This will enable countries not only for COVID-19 vaccine availability, but also in the future to build up the capacity so that the vaccination as a preventive measure can be applied and used in developing Asia. Next slide, please. Some of the opportunities and the risks that we can see in the health sector for the next few years. Number one, as we are still reviving the growth towards Sustainable Development Goals 3, there has been, to emphasize the use of essential health services. During the pandemic, we have seen the data that the essential health services were there have been barriers for the use of essential health services. So we need to strengthen those services, recovery, the key primary and the preventive aspects as a priority. Second, to rebuild better the public health system, including both the diagnostic and the curative services. As we can see, the shortcomings from the pandemic includes intensive care beds, oxygen supplies, capacity of healthcare staff, human resources, diagnostic services, and the front line health workers shortage, etc. So this needs to be as opportunities to be addressed. Three is to meet the demand of improved pandemic preparedness. So we are trying to look at what are the lessons we can learn from the COVID-19 pandemic, and also identify the weakness and the bottlenecks in the national health security capacity, and to strengthen those to build a stronger, more resilient health systems for future crises or pandemics. Four, potential for translating lessons learned and the scale up in successful innovations. So there has been innovations in the health sector, such as digital health, investment in sustainable population level COVID-19 immunization, etc. We have been saying integrated approach. We want to scale up those in the future. Most very critical concern is how can we move back to the right track on UHC progresses, universal health coverage, including addressing the non-communicable disease burden for Asian Pacific, and also for resource mobilization and the promote effective public and the private partnership. Next slide, please. So now just some showcase of the health sector pipeline and what we are doing. If we look at this year, as earlier on Rustam mentioned, due to the pandemic, I think looks like health has become a very important sector for ADB. So we have seen a major increase in disbursement for the first half a year of 2021. If we look at what are those, so almost 80% of the pipeline, of health pipeline is related to COVID-19 vaccination or APVAX projects from different, you look at different sub-regions, a lot of them to do with communicable diseases control and the system development. Next slide, please. This is the rundown list of the APVAX projects. So up to now, we have seen over 2.7 billion projects of I think 12 so far projects being approved by the board of ADB, including the one very freshly approved. Georgia was yesterday, and also we anticipated that by the end of this year. We will reach 4.9 billion. So out of the 9 billion facility, we still have some headroom of almost 4 billion. Next slide, please. And for the non-COVID COVID-19 related health pipelines, still also want to share with you what's going on. Let's look at it from different sub-regions. For example, if we start with Central West Asia, we have a project to build active response, COVID-19 response and expenditure support, which has a component of almost 1/3 of health for health. And in Pakistan, to build the integrated social protection development program. In East Asia, ADB is working on the public service sector, the PPP demonstration program, a promotion and the demonstration project for elderly care. And in Mongolia to strengthen the health security programs. Next slide, please. East Asia, we have Cambodia for Greater Mekong sub-region health security projects. We have Indonesia to build strengthen human capital program. Also on the pharmaceutical capacity to be strengthened. And the Laos, in Lao PDR, we have improved the quality of healthcare projects. And in Philippines, the build of universal health care projects. Next slide, please. In South Asia, we also see in Bangladesh, strengthen social resilience program and the Sri Lanka health system enhancement project, etc. Also, we would have a few projects from the private sector operations in India on the COVID-19 hospitals service delivery project, as well as strengthening the diagnostic services in India. Next slide, please. Now, looking slightly beyond for next year, again, this is a list of the project health pipeline projects. We have, for example, in Central West, we have Kyrgyz Republic on strengthening diagnostic and reference laboratory capacity projects. We have Pakistan in the KP province health system strengthening. In India, working on health system development, as well as in Indonesia, again, essential health actions and the transformation projects. Next slide. In the East Asia, we have the projects in Mongolia for resilient and integrated border services, and in the Pacific countries, integrated care, aged care in Tonga, South Asia, supporting the healthcare improvement projects and the medical school education, building healthcare program, universal healthcare program, and also to address some system enhancement needs learned from COVID-19 in Philippines. In Pakistan, the reintegration project, Kiribati, some health infrastructure projects, as mentioned earlier. This is a projects that we are looking for the next further years, 2023 and 2024. As you can see, the health sector is increasing its loan and practices operations in ADB. Next slide, please. We look at the health sector not only from the operations, but also we're trying to build ADB, as a knowledge solution bank. So from that, the technical assistance that brought to countries through technical expertise and consultants are very important as well. Just looking from our knowledge department side, in the coming 2 years, we have projects focusing on universal healthcare coverage for inclusive growth. We have projects to support improved healthcare outcomes in Asia and Pacific. We have projects, the mega TA, to support to address the outbreak of COVID-19 and other communicable diseases, as well as using digital technology to improve the national health insurance in Asia and Pacific. Next slide, please. Also, in other regions, as you can see, technical assistance are being prepared in the pipeline. So overall, we can see in the next 4 years, we have about 67.5 million US dollars worth projects of TA projects being prepared in various of countries, as you can see on the right-hand side. Next slide, please. Then just want to finally give you some examples on the big TA projects. What do we do with these projects in different regions? Maybe starting from Vanuatu to the Pacific, we have the preparing for health sector projects. In India, we are supporting Indians' COVID-19 response and the vaccination programs, as well as strengthen the universal health coverage and the urban health, primary health care services, as I mentioned earlier. We also do technical assistance through the regional lens to support COVID-19 response and preparedness in South Asia, and I think another one is also being prepared under in the Southeast Asia. In Indonesia, we are trying to strengthen the testing and the tracing capacity for COVID-19 response in Indonesia, so that countries' capacity are being built. Philippines to support building up the universal health coverage, as well as a few ones, the regional ones, as I also quickly mentioned, to enhance quick COVID-19 vaccination rollout and expansion. This is the end of my presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rui. I think our membership noted with appreciation all the steps taken by the bank towards a healthier world, I would say. And they will also note that by nature of their membership, they are much interested in the health infrastructure, like building hospitals and all related items. I think the comprehensive information you have provided is noted, as I said, and has to be break down for maybe like the PPP projects or others that can be brought to the attention of the bank. Thank you so much. And I think now, as the last speaker, I would offer the floor to Rubina Sheehan for overview and the doing business with the ADB for our membership. Rubina, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Hassan. Good morning, colleagues. This is Rubina Shaheen. I work for Asian Development Bank. It's been about 11 years. I work for the procurement portfolio and financial management department of ADB. After hearing about this, a lot of opportunities in the transport, energy, and health sector, I think the next important step is that as a contractor, suppliers, and the consultant, where do we get the opportunity and how you can support the ADB portfolio. Next slide, please. So in today's discussion, I will just give you an overview, and then I hope with the 30-45 minutes, you will have some better understanding of the ADB procurement operations. And then who are the key suppliers who have been supporting ADB portfolio over the globe, and then particularly who are the key major supplier for the from the Turkish companies. What are the ADB procurement framework under which we are procuring the goods, works, and consulting services, and some of the key strategies in the bidding that you can help to improve to ensure that you increase your chances in winning the ADB finance contracts. And most importantly, at the end, you will be I will be showing some slides on the ADB website where you can find how to find the information for all type of the projects and the opportunities that are available for you. And the last one on the COVID-19 in the health sector as well. Next slide, please. ADB is a multilateral bank, a public non-profit institution. It was founded in 1966. Our headquarters is in Manila, Philippines, and 49 members are in the region and 19 are working from the non-regional. We have, as of now, we have 41 borrowing member countries. How do we support our portfolio? We support our portfolio by working through the private sector. Then we also work with the NGOs and the community-based organizations, and we also work with the different academia institutions and the think tanks who help us in developing several various type of the policy works. And we also work with the donors and other international institutions, and then we group together and we ensure to enhance our financing as well. So poverty is in the region is the greatest development challenge for the ADB, and it is one of our highest priority. Our vision is clear and far-reaching: a prosperous, inclusive, resilient, and sustainable Asia and the Pacific. Next slide, please. So as Rustam already mentioned, our current portfolio stands, the investment portfolio is sovereign, is 102 billion. And we work in the 5 regions. Central West region, it has 10 countries. South Asia, it is comprised of the 6 countries. Then we have Southeast Asia comprising of 8 countries. East Asia is Mongolia and China, and then we have Pacific, where this portfolio is small, but it is comprising of the 14 small countries. Looking into this slide, you can see the biggest portfolio is coming, about 50% of the portfolio is from the transport and energy sector. In 2019, and there's a little bit decline in the transport, energy, water, and agriculture. But there is, in education, it is at the same 6%. And there's some other public sector which is a little bit growing. And we expect it will be growing over the years. In this, I think there's a potential, as our colleague mentioned also, that in coming days, we will see a lot of potential in the health sector and education particularly. Next slide. This slide is just to give you an idea that every year our portfolio is growing at least at the rate of about 8.6%. So more opportunities are coming up for ADB finance projects. And in the non-sovereign, next slide, please. Can we go to the next slide, please? So in the non-sovereign portfolio, it is also growing over the time from 2016 to 2020. You can see from it is from 9.2 to it has risen up to 14.3 billion. And over the years, it will be growing as well. And our future is also to enhance our partnership in the private sector. Next slide, please. This is about Strategy 2030, which our other colleagues have already mentioned. So I will not be going into detail of this slide. The only thing is that our Strategy 2030 focuses on the several operational priorities. And among those, it is also that we want to focus more on the gender equality. And we expect by 2030, about 70% of our portfolio will be having the gender equality. Also, in addition to that, in one of these areas that we want to focus is on the institutional strengthening, governance, and institutional capacity, where it comes in the procurement point of view also, that we are working with our governments and the DMCs to help build their systems to ensure that we ensure the transparency and efficiency in whatever the system they are in place. Also, we are trying to expand our private sector. It is expected by 2024, at least 1/3 of the portfolio of ADB will be coming from the going to the private sector, and catalyzing and mobilizing financial resources for development. It means that if we are putting $1 in the private sector, then we are planning to have at least $2.5 from the co-financing. So there is a potential in the sovereign sector as well as from the non-sovereign opportunities. Next slide, please. So this is a slide that is showing that in the last about 4 years, what are the countries that have been providing the services to ADB in goods, works, and consulting services. If you see from in terms of goods, 17 to 20, it was 17 and 18, it was China, then taken over by India, #1. And then you can see at #4 in 2020, Turkey is there at #4. So it's a good news for our Turkish suppliers. So there's a potential to grow also in if this works. There are different type of the countries. Turkey is not yet there, but you can always increase and enhance your portfolio. Likewise, for the consulting services, these are coming mostly from the Australia, Korea, Indonesia, and USA normally, and France. Next slide, please. So in terms of the amount, what are the major companies who have been providing us the goods in the last 4 years? Like in 3 contracts, it's gone to the BEML, 7.2 billion, and in 10 contracts, ABB Group. So this is just to give you an idea that what are the main suppliers who have been supporting the ADB portfolio in various number of contracts. Next slide, please. Now for the works, we have about, in 28, the biggest company is like Larsen & Toubro. They have been providing in the works, a big portfolio they have received, the financing from ADB, and likewise other in Siemens, China Railway, Hyundai, Sonica Construction Philippines. It gives you an idea what are the major player for ADB portfolio. Next slide, please. In the consulting services, again, it's coming from SMEC, EGIS, TY Lane International, Overook, and Korea. So it gives you a flavor of, we have a big portion of the opportunities and lot of contracts. Next slide, please. So this will be an interesting slide for you. Here we want to show you what are the main contractors and suppliers from Turkish firm from the last 5 years, 2016 to 2020. So we have these 5 big contractor suppliers, and mostly they are providing the services in the transport and the energy sector, and very well explained because transport and energy are the biggest portfolio of ADB and totaling to about 644 million. Next slide, please. It is also interesting to know that we are getting some consulting services as well. Again, in the transport and also in the urban sector as well, water and urban sector, which is also interesting to note. When we provide the services for the consulting services, they are coming in the forms of the as a firm or as an individual, if you can see in number 0.6.
Temin ediliyor. 41.46 milyonluk bir miktardan bahsediyoruz. Evet, bu slide gerçekten çok önemli. Burada web sitemize olan linki görebiliyorsunuz. Belki de ilk kez Adb web sitesinde böyle bir yayın yaptı. Ve çok fazla istatistik ve bilgi vermekte. Portföyümüzle ilgili sözleşmeler kimle imzalanıyor, sözleşme miktarı nedir?
O yüzden son derece iyi bir bilgi olabileceğini düşünüyorum bunların sizler için. Eğer daha sonra
associate and where you can see where the upcoming opportunities are available in ADB. Next slide. So why you have to pursue the business? What are the key advantages and why the ADB portfolio could be an interesting venture to join hands with ADB? When ADB loans are signed, it means it gives a kind of assurance to our consultant, contractors, and the suppliers because the financing will be assured. Because for the large, especially for the large value contracts, based on the request of the client, ADB is directly processing the payments to the contractors and the suppliers. So there is no issue with the lack of funds availability, which sometimes is an issue when you work directly with the government. Then our portfolio is expanding. We are working in various type of portfolio and it's expanding, and we are bringing a lot of innovation and new technologies in our portfolio. So that will be an interesting feature for you to work with us. And then also when ADB is giving the financing to our DMCs, one of the condition is that they have to follow the Adb Procurement Framework. And Adb Procurement Framework is based on the internationally accepted procurement principle of fairness and transparency. So it gives you the confidence that the bidding process will be done competitively and transparently. And ADB also provide a strong fiduciary oversight. ADB does not involve directly into the procurement, but we do have a role to play when the procurement or the bidding is done. ADB at various stages of the bidding process, we review and give our no objections. So it gives a strong confidence to our contractors and suppliers that things will be done moving transparently. And also, I think it gives an immense pleasure to me to working with ADB and working for a wealthy towards a mission to eradicate poverty in Asia and the Pacific. Next slide, please. So what type of the opportunities are available? As we mentioned, we work with the in the goods under our ADB finance project. There's many times there's a requirement for the heavy machinery equipment. And likewise for civil works, we are working in the mega road projects, railways, irrigation canals, and EPC type of contracts we are using in the energy sector also, in the heating system. So make a big mega airport project that we have done in our Pacific. And consulting also, whenever we do the project, a lot of consulting opportunities also, because most of the projects when our DMCs they are doing, they hire the consulting firm to help them in the implementation and the supervision of those contracts. And in addition to that, consulting services are also used to help DMCs as well as ADB to develop the knowledge products and do some surveys, assessments. And in addition to that, there are some other non-consulting services options available as well, which are very simple, like translation, training, simple type of the surveys. So this is a new feature that has been introduced. So there are a lot of opportunities and broadly in the 4 main areas. Next slide, please. So now to find out where this and where the role of the consultant will be. To understand, first of all, we need to understand what is the ADB procurement cycle. ADB project cycle starts with the CPS. CPS is a country partnership strategy, which is developed for each of our DMC. And it is a document which strategizes and it develops a business plan for each country in coordination with the other MDBs or financial institution working in a particular country, so that to ensure there is no overlapping or there is no duplication of effort. So once the project is developed for the pipeline is developed for the 5 years, then the projects come actually in the execution. So at this stage, ADB is requiring the input from the various individual consultants who can help ADB in doing the sector assessment, analysis, strategy development of the strategy paper. For a particular project, first step is to develop a concept paper. Again, here we need, normally most of the time, we need the input from the individual consultants. And when we go for the detailed pre-feasibility study of a project, then under the TRTA, the technical assistance that is provided by ADB as a grant to our DMC. So under that, ADB is the one who will be recruiting either the consulting firm or the individual consultant to help in the preparation of the design documents.
Gören firmalara dokümanların hazırlanmasında yardımcı olur. Projenin onaylanmasından sonra uygulama süreci başlar. Projelerin uygulaması yine özellikle bizim danışmanlık birimlerimiz tarafından ele alınan konular olduğu için bu süreçte de yapılması gereken çok fazla şey vardır ve proje döngüsündeki son adımda uygulamadır. Uygulamanın arkasından da tamamlanma süreci gelir. Bağımsız bir şekilde proje amacına uygun mu değil mi değerlendirmesinin yapıldığı bir adımdır. Ve onaylanabilecek mi söz konusu proje, buna bakılır. Dolayısıyla bu proje döngüsünde gördüğünüz gibi çok fazla fırsat yer almakta, farklı yükleniciler, danışmanlar ve tedarikçiler için. Şimdi bu slayda baktığımız zaman şunu görüyoruz. Bir tane satın alma çerçevesi var ama Asya Kalkınma Bankası yeni bir çerçevede kendisine belirledi. Ama bu yeni çerçevede de ilke aynı, çerçeve aynı. Tek fark şu, 2017 Temmuz'undan önce onaylanmış olan projeler aynı şekilde yürütülmeye devam ediliyor. Onlarda bir değişiklik yok. Danışmanlık hizmetlerinde vesaire. Ama 2017 Temmuz'undan sonra başlatılmış olan projelerdeki satın alma işlemleri farklı prensiplere tabi bir şekilde yürütülmekte. Satın alma ile ilgili bir tüzüğümüz var. Tüzüğümüzün içerisinde her iki kategoriden de bahsedilmekte. Malların, hizmetlerin, danışmanlık hizmetlerinin ve danışmanlık dışı hizmetlerin nasıl ele alındığını gösteren bir çerçeve dokümanı. Bu bahsettiğimiz doküman. Dolayısıyla Asya Kalkınma Bankası ve DMC'lerimizle çalışan kişilerin istifade edebileceği bir doküman, farklı konuların da dile getirildiği bir doküman. O yüzden siz de danışmanlık dışı hizmetlerin neler olduğunu anlayabilmek isterseniz tam bir rehberlik edebilmesi adına web sitemizde bu çerçeveyi bulabilirsiniz. Onun dışında Asya Kalkınma Bankası neler yapabilir bu konuyla ilgili olarak, ne anlamda yardımda bulunabilir, danışmanlık verebilir, bunu görebilirsiniz. Burada bahsettiğimiz şeyler kurallar değil ama sadece rehberlik edebilmesi için hazırlanmış olan bir takım bilgiler. Asya Kalkınma Bankası'nın web sitesinde ne gibi prosedürlerin tatbik edildiğine bankamız tarafından bu farklı hizmetler söz konusu olduğunda görebilmeniz mümkün. Yapılan şey ne olursa olsun Asya Kalkınma Bankası finansman projeleri kapsamında bu 6 tane prensibe bağlı olarak çalışılır. Adalet ne anlama geliyor? Hakkaniyetli bir şekilde eşit fırsatın verilmesi, eşit dağıtımın gerçekleştirilmesi ve aynı zamanda güvenilir bir mekanizmayla satın alma ile ilgili şikayetlerin ele alınması. Birinci prensibimiz bu. Asya Kalkınma Bankası'nda bütün faaliyetlerimizi gerçekleştirirken önem verdiğimiz. Onun dışında ekonomi, yine fiyat, kalite ve herhangi bir fiyat dışı özellikler ya da konular varsa projeler içerisinde bunların ele alınması anlamına geliyor. Özellikle kullandığımız sistemin içerisinde fiyatı kaliteli bir şekilde kullanabilmek, fiyat dışı özellikleri de yine geçerli projeleri dönüştürebilmek adına en mantıklı şekilde kullanabilmek anlamına geliyor. Onun dışında verimlilik, ne gibi bir işlem tipinden bahsettiğimiz bağlı olarak o işlemlerin değerinin makul bir şekilde muhafaza edilebilmesi ve aynı zamanda ihale sürecinin tipi, uygulama, düzenleme aşamalarında yine saydamlığın sağlanabilmesi ve satın alma planının yapılırken bununla ilgili reklam faaliyetlerinin de mantıklı ve eşit fırsata imkan verebilecek şekilde yapılabilmesi, aynı anda en fazla bilginin sağlanabilmesi anlamına geliyor. Onun dışında satın alma tüzüğünün içerisinde kalite ve paranın karşılığının alınabilmesi gibi yeni ilkelerimiz de var. Daha önceki satın alma çerçevesinde de bu iki ilke vardı ama bunu özellikle koyu renkle burada gösteriyoruz önemini anlatabilmek için. Satın alma ile ilgili düzenlemelerin kalite gereksinimlerini karşılaması burada kalite prensibiyle bahsetmeye çalıştığımız ve tabii ki bu tür faaliyetleri gerçekleştirdiğimiz zaman yatırdığımız paranın karşılığını alabilmek, paranın karşılığını, değerini alabilmek son prensibimiz. Bunlar bize satın alma süreci içerisinde danışmanlık hizmeti veren taraflar, Asya Kalkınma Bankası ve DMC'ler arasında nasıl bir ilişki olduğunu gösteriyor. Asya Kalkınma Bankası'nın herhangi bir şekilde doğrudan yüklenicilerle bir ilişkisi yok. Ya da herhangi bir şekilde DMC'ler için verilen ya da yönlendirilen hizmetlere birincil ve şahsen bir dahiliyeti söz konusu değil. Dolayısıyla doğrudan bu seçimi yapan ve danışmanları istihdam eden Asya Kalkınma Bankası'nın kendisidir. Bunun dışında finansman söz konusu olduğunda Asya Kalkınma Bankası bazen eğer bir şikayet söz konusuysa ya da kritik bir konu söz konusuysa sürece dahil oluyor. Aksi halde böyle bir dahiliyet söz konusu olmuyor doğrudan. Peki Asya Kalkınma Bankası'nın satın alma dokümanları nelerdir? Yine bunu bankanın web sitesinde bulabilirsiniz. Standart ihale dokümanları var, bütün kontratlar için geçerli olan. Büyük tesisler için ya da küçük tesisler için fark etmez. Yine tasarım, tedarik, kuruluş alanlarında neler yapılması gerektiğiyle ilgili dokümanlarımız var. Yine kırsal alandaki projeler ve şehirde gerçekleştirilecek projeler için nelere dikkat edilmesi gerektiğiyle ilgili dokümanlar da yine web sitesinde yer almakta. Onun dışında tasarla, yap, işlet projeleri ki bu yeni bir başlık dokümanlarımız arasında. Bunların nasıl yapılması gerektiğiyle ilgili de yine bilgileri bu dokümanlar arasında bulmak mümkün. Onun dışında açık, rekabet gücü yüksek bir ihale süreci bizim için bir öncelik. Onun dışında kısıtlı rekabet gücü olan ihale süreçleriyle ilgili neler yapılması gerektiğine dair yine metotlarımızın yer aldığını da bu web sitemizde söyleyebiliriz. Satın alma çerçevesi söz konusu olduğunda danışmanlar neler yapabilir? Aynı zamanda bununla ilgili tüzüğün içerisinde neler yer almalıdır konusunu yine görebiliyoruz. Ne gibi hizmetler gerekiyor? Nasıl bir rehberlik hizmeti verilmesi gerekiyor yapılacak bu faaliyetler için konusuna bakabiliriz. Çerçeve anlaşmayı gerçekleştirip bunları bütün prosedürler çerçevesinde kullanarak etkinliği arttırabilmek satın alma sürecinde esas amacımız. Onun dışında yakın gelecekte bütün bu süreç içerisinde daha fazla elektronik metot kullanılabilmesi bizler için çok önemli. Onun dışında daha önceden nitelikleri belirlenmiş projelerin gelecekte nasıl yönetilmesi gerektiğiyle ilgili yaptığımız çalışmalarda yine metot açısından projelerimizde yer alan önemli bir konu. Acil durumlar söz konusu olduğunda ya doğal bir afet ya da insan eliyle ortaya çıkmış bir afet ya da acil durum söz konusu olduğunda ne yapılması gerektiğiyle ilgili yine tüzüğümüzde politikalarımız var. Bu anlamda tabii ki esneklik öngören prensipler bunlar. Esneklikle ilgili prosedürlerin nasıl kullanılabilmesi gerektiğiyle ilgili, basitleştirilmiş prosedürlerin neler olması gerektiğiyle ilgili olarak konuları yine bu dokümanda bulmak mümkün. Onun dışında yüksek teknoloji kullanılması ve inovasyonu projelere dahil edebilmek, teknoloji ve inovasyonu kullanarak projelerin gerçekleştirilebilmesi diğer önemli bir metodumuz. Özellikle katılımcılar kendi akranlarını da değerlendirirken neye dikkat etmeleri gerektiğini anlayabilmek için bu metotlara bakabilirler. Dolayısıyla artık değerlendirme sırasında hangi kriterlerin kullanılması gerektiği ya da puan ve skorlama sistemlerinin neler olması gerektiğini de daha ciddi bir şekilde belirledik. Çünkü biz en iyi kalitede akran firma ya da ihaleye katılan yüklenici istediğimiz için bunu yeni bir özellik olarak dahil ettik metotlarımız arasına. Onun dışında projelerde neler kullanılması gerektiği, üçüncü taraf satın almalarının söz konusu olduğu durumlarda ve Asya Kalkınma Bankası'nın garanti altına aldığı krediler söz konusu olduğunda hangi tüzüklerin uygulanması gerektiğinden de bahsediyor. Yine bu doküman özel sektör söz konusu olduğunda prosedürler tabii ki çok alışılmış prosedürler olduğu için bizim de buna benzer bir yol izlemek gibi bir amacımız var bu dokümanlarda. Peki en fazla hangi hataları gözlemliyoruz biz bu tür ihalelerin hazırlığı aşamasında diye bakacak olursak şunu görüyoruz. Bazen imza yetkisi olmayan kişi imzalayabiliyor ve bazen sadece yetkisi olmayan bir kişinin imzalamasının dışında bu dokümanları imzalanmadan da gönderilebiliyor. Böyle olduğunda tabii ki bu başvuru hiçbir şekilde geçerli sayılamıyor. Onun dışında herhangi bir şekilde bir güvenliği olmayabiliyor teklifin ya da teklifi güvence altına alan deklarasyonlar, açıklamalar.
Information of whatever is required in the bidding document, the information is not complete. Sometimes this type of mistakes or incomplete bid leads to either rejection of the bid or substantially delay in the evaluation of the bids. For example, if the test report is required to be submitted as a part of the bid, it is not missing. So just to give you a brief some understanding, because some of the mistakes or the omissions could be like a minor, which can be rectified through clarification, but there are some omissions which cannot be rectified, and those leads to a rejection of the bids. So just pay attention to those details when you submit the bid. The bid has to be complete. Next slide, please. So ADB pay high attention towards anti-corruption policy, and it has its policy and the guidelines as well. This equally applies to our DMCs, implementing agencies, contractor, consultant, as well as the ADB staff. So if there's zero tolerance about the corruption policy of ADB finance project. If you will see in our bidding documents, there are a lot of information embedded, and it's a self-declaration by the bidder itself that they have to declare that there is no corruption issue, or there is no conflict of interest issue, so they have to disclose it. So failure to comply with this type of ADB anti-corruption policy can lead to the rejection of the bid and also to the sanction by ADB, and the sanction can be for 3 to 5 years depending on the severity of that non-compliance to the ADB policy. Next slide, please. Next. So here we are going to briefly discuss about briefly about the TA, what are the consulting services which are available under the ADB. So the TA consulting recruitment is done directly by ADB, and this is governed by the UK law. And normally when the consultants are hired under the TA, there is a certification issued by the ADB based on the TA framework agreement, which we have under with our DMCs. And those services are tax exempted. However, there could be some different territory to territory, it may be different. When we go to the loan consulting services that are financed by the loan and the grant, these are done directly by our DMC's borrower itself. And the ADB is the only which we deal with the oversight and give our no objection at various stages of the procurement process. Then again, tax is a very, very important point that you need to focus when you submit or want to participate in the consulting services in the DMC. Please get clarity on the taxes. This is one of the challenging area. The better clarity you have, the better you will be able to submit a compliant bid. And then the complaints of the borrowers are handled directly by the borrower, but sometimes they may be addressed to ADB, and then ADB then has to intervene directly with the DMC before coordinating with the consultant. Next slide, please. So briefly, as we discussed earlier, we have engaged through the consulting firm, and as well as we work with the individual consultant under the technical assistance, loan, and the grants. And we may need the national or the international, depending on the requirement of the assignment. And if normally our consultant and the contractors, they are coming from the ADB member country, but when you look into, it is important for you to pay attention and you look into the loan, where the financing is coming from. Sometimes depending on the sources of the financing, the ADB member country eligibility is waived off, and that means a universal procurement and any consultant can participate. So the eligibility is important to understand. Then ADB has finances also for staff consultant that ADB is directly engaging them. So there are opportunities as well. Next slide, please. Just to quickly take you through the process of the firm recruitment. It's a lengthy process, and these are the various steps that have been highlighted here. Next slide. What are the procurement methods that are used for the recruitment of the consulting firm? This is use quality and cost-based selection is the most commonly used method, which is quality, and it has the three types of, it has a quality and cost, and it could be 90-10, it can be 80-20 or 70-30, depending on the requirement of each assignment. And the next method is a quality-based selection, where we do not want to be influenced by the financial because of the complexity or the importance of the assignment. CQS method is also used for small value assignment, FPS, fixed budget selection, least cost selection method, and direct contracting. Direct contracting is also the not a preferred method, but of course, in the situation, as I explained, maybe in the emergency situation, or maybe there's a proprietary type of services that we want to engage, then the flexibility have to be introduced, and we use the direct contracting. Next slide, please. So when we do the recruitment of the consulting firm, either through for the TA under the technical assistance, or through when our DMCs want to hire some, they have to go through the CMS system. So it is important that you register yourself in the CMS system, and it is published on the ADB website. And depending on the type of the assignment, the three options that you can use is a full, for the type of the proposal, it's a full, simplified, or biodata technical proposal can be used. And there are standard documents are available on the ADB website, and these are used, including the evaluation criteria. The two types of the TO are the normally used. One is called the performance, and other one is a conformance base. And that we have two types of contract generally which are used: time-based contract, which are normally for the supervision type of assignments, and the lump sum contracts are used for the where the outputs are very clear and design services. And sometimes under the TA consultant, we use the hybrid type of contracts as well. And others, of course, member eligibility and the debriefing when it is required. Next slide, please. So there are individual options for the individual consultant, and this is a process. It's a very simple process. It takes minimum advertisement for about 7 days on the CMS system. Then we do the shortlist, negotiate, and contract is issued. Important point here is do not ever initiate the assignment unless the notice to proceed has been issued by ADB. Because if you proceed to work without getting the NTP from the ADB cannot guarantee or will not be able to pay your services that you have already provided. So that's why it's important to know. Next slide, please. So what are some of the general considerations that you should look into? When you want to participate in ADB finance project, you need to first look into whether you will be able to participate as an individual or you want to participate as a consulting firm, whether you want to associate with each other or you will have the capability to carry out the assignment yourself. And if you need some additional resources, you can bring them and associate with them in the form of the joint venture or as a sub-consultant. It's your preference. And who are the other partners working in that area? You need to have better understanding of those. Who are your competitor in that market? And also to understand what is the country culture, what is the expectation of your client from you. So pay attention on these things. And ask questions before submitting your proposal. It is your responsibility to make sure you have the good clarity and understanding of the assignment on the terms of reference. Next slide, please. So the debriefing is a process which is conducted after the contract has been successfully awarded and published. So if some of the consulting firm, they are not satisfied with the result of the valuation, or if they are losing the contract, they have not won the contract, any rationale or justification they want to get some background from the DMC, they can get it and they can complain about it. And the reason behind this is that maybe they will be able to brief you, and so that you can improve for your future participation in your ADB finance projects. And likewise, complaint also, these are handled by the DMCs, but as I explained earlier, ADB can also intervene as an unrequired, subject to the nature of the complaint. If the supplier, contractors, and the consultant is not satisfied with the debriefing or the way the complaint has been addressed by the DMC, then ADB will be intervening into this. And fraud related issues, you can always report on our ADB website. Next slide, please. So this is just slides which gives you an idea where you can find the information on the ADB website. It's all self-explanatory. Next slide, please. So these are the various options. It guides you how to do, what are the ADB policy and procedures, where you can find the various types of the bidding documents available, standard bidding documents on the ADB website. Next slide, please. Next slide. Yes. This is important to understand. This all the you can see and go into where is a procurement plan, because every project is required to publish its procurement plan on ADB website as well as their own EA's own website. It will give you the information about what are the upcoming opportunities, and we also publish the advanced contracting notice. So it means that this gives you at least 3-4 months advance notice what are the opportunities in our DMCs. Then the list of the pre-qualified contractors published on ADB website. So it means if you are not able to participate, you still have the opportunity to associate with them and participate during the bidding process. So all this information is available. Next slide, please. So it's the procurement plan, and if you want to go and look into in Vietnam and what is the energy sector and what are the opportunities, so you can filter through country by country, project by projects. All this information is available. Next slide, please. So this is a CMS. If you have not registered yourself, you can always register and start getting the alert from ADB. It's an easy and quick system, and by this way, you will remain connected on the ADB opportunities. Next slide, please. So this is again the consulting services recruitment notice. Yes, next slide, please. Yes, this is a consulting recruitment notice. It's also showing you what type of the opportunities are there. Depending on what is your area of interest, whether it's energy, health, you can filter through that. And you can also see what are the active opportunities there. Next slide, please. So this you can see whether if the opportunities are still open, then you can participate and look into that. Next slide. And COVID-19, a separate page has been published on the Adb website that gives you the information, because in the health sector, there are a lot of opportunities and you can go and explore. Next slide, please. Next slide. Yes, and then the next slide is the last one. Next slide, please. So it was just a brief introduction, and the below links also give you an idea. You can internet with each other through LinkedIn, and you can also remain connected with each other. And also, if you have any questions, you can always contact us through the email. So I'll just stop here and hand over to Hassan, please. Thank you.
Rubina, I and our colleagues thank you for this very comprehensive presentation. After this sector-specific presentations from your colleagues, yours was kind of an Adb operations manual. So I think this is very well noted, and I think we will be able to circulate it among the memberships, because you have provided so many information to digest, from starting from procurement framework to procurement methods and all sort of details, which is very well welcomed and appreciated. I thank you so much. I think now we have completed all the presentations according to my information, according to the program we have. Now we can turn to our audience and start the Q&A session, which we have already received some. So if you may, maybe you have already followed the questions. We have both on the chat section or Q&A session. Meanwhile, I'd like to invite our audience once again to just pose their questions if they have. While they have writing or raising hand to ask the questions, we can start by answering the present ones. So I'm in your hands. I have copied 2 of the questions from the chat session for the sake of clearness. The first question came from Mr. Mustafa Sabri Gökalp. If you can read it, he is asking, is it an option for Adb to be a shareholder in renewable energy investments?
Well, I think this is clearly discussed with Rubina's presentation. Adb is mostly in the sovereign, even the non-sovereign operations, that we are not directly, we are providing guarantee, loan, grants, or any technical assistance program is part of the grant as well. So, these type of things are all done. So, and then it is working under the, country operational business plan under the, CPS, country partnership strategy. So we are dealing with the government. So our request is coming directly. So we are not actually, if I understand correctly your question, we're not directly a shareholder of the certain private sector, private companies or entities like that. So, that is my answer to that one, if that is the correct question that I understood correctly.
I think if there is a follow-up question from the provider, he may come up with a follow-up question. I think it's well understood and answered. Thank you so much. Bu arada değerli katılımcılarımız da olabilecek sorularını dediğimiz gibi
And as I told you before, you can use
soru cevap bölümüne tıklayarak da yazabileceksiniz. Bir kez daha hatırlatmak istedim. Meanwhile,
You are muted, Hassan.
I think I talked too much. I muted myself. Few people are tired, I think. Sorry, there was another question on the chat session. Maybe you have already see that, which says that, does Adb have any experience of virtual electricity sale consultancy in energy sector, both domestic and offshore?
Well, if I answer to that, those are the two questions that I saw in this chat box. I don't know what you mean by the virtual electricity sale. Are we talking about power purchasing agreement that you're doing the agreement with, virtually? And then also it says a consultancy. So, we have some of this, like for instance, as an example, it might be a good idea to show that one, because we are doing some of this pilot testing where in particular from the decentralized electricity system, where most of the DMCs, they are, so to say, the utility is that they have a very strong utility, and they are the ones that mainly, those ones from discos or even the transcores. So they are doing the major part of the sales. If you do the decentralized electricity, then there are some remaining, for instance, from the clean energy, renewable energy, and then you can, so to say, get the deduction from the existing grid, or you can use the grid to resell whatever the remaining, marginal electricity that you have saved, so to say. So there has to be some kind of a price mechanism in the market should be established, in individual countries. In terms of distributed renewable energy system, so to say, this is not grid connected, but you have your own generator, your own system. Then there are certain virtual sales, electric sales, but I would say electricity purchasing, so to say. So which we have experienced that introducing, so to say, the pre-meter system, where that you can use it, PC or something, that you can from somewhere that you can purchase the amount, so to say, the total price. And then you can load to the pre-meter system so that the consumer can, up to the paid level, that they can get they can, so to say, purchase the electricity until that amount. So if that is correct, but in terms of a consultancy, that part I'm not clear. I don't understand that, what the consultancy means. I don't know whether this is the question on that one.
I think, thanks so much. I think the owner of the question is satisfied. On the contrary, he can come up with a follow-up question, as we said in the first one. So Rubina, I have seen some questions directed to you. Can you read those questions from the open questions, or you may want to respond and reading first and then respond, or you want me to read it for you?
Yes, I can see the question. It says, how is the prioritization of tendering process come up? What are the main issues you consider before you say, let us publish this tender? Okay. So in terms of ADB, let's say, let's talk about tender publishing. If it is a ADB finance project, we are working with the DMC. There is a standard process. We will go through the whole thing as I was explaining in the project cycle. So once the project has been approved or in the process of approval, you will see in our procurement regulation, we highly emphasize on the use of the advanced contracting. Advanced contracting means while the project is still in the process of being approved by ADB for a DMC, let's say Bangladesh, we are in process of getting approval of the loan, but in the meantime we already have done or developed the procurement plan for that, what type of the equity, the consulting services, the goods, works, whatever we want to procure in a particular project. We will publish the procurement plan and the advance notice on the ADB website, and that is opportunity for you to get into it and find those opportunities on ADB website. So is that the question that you are asking? If not, please let us know again with the follow-up question. So this is a question number 1. Can I move to the second question now? It says, as far as we know, the investment in Philippines are generally focused on rail transport. Is it with it be same in Mongolia, where ADB transport investment take place according to the presentation? So it is maybe more on the portfolio with Bernard. You can respond.
Yeah, thanks, Rubina. I can take that one. So when I was saying that in the Philippines we have a large portfolio, I can be more specific on some of the projects. So we have the Manila-Clark commuter rail. I don't remember the loan amount, and it's also there is also some participation from the private sector there. So it's one of the innovative form of project that we can see that combines both. But we are talking about more than $1 billion, I think. And we are also looking at MRT4 that is currently being prepared. And so as one of the extension of the MRT system in Manila. So we anticipate also a large project there. The loan is not yet approved for MRT4. And there are other projects. So I invite you again just to go to our website and you will see the details. In Mongolia, it's a little bit different. I'm not that familiar with the portfolio. I remember there is a rail project that is a bypass that was approved a few years ago. I have to say that I'm not familiar with the status of this project. So again, I will invite the person who asked the question to go to our website for an accurate answer on that, but definitely is a sector that is being looked at in Mongolia. And we are also seeing opportunities in terms of urban transport projects. We know that the government is willing to invest in that sector, but it's still at a preliminary stage. That would be my answer on Mongolia. Thank you.
Thank you, Bertrand. Rubina, I think the follow-up, if you are going to add on this question specifically, please go on. Otherwise, there is a follow-up question to the previous one about publishing a tender towards you, I think, from the same lady, Müge Özgüner.
So what is a follow-up question? I think I saw one question on this. I want to add, how do you decide on the urgency?
On urgency, yes.
Means, yeah, it's basically on the emergency. So the question is, how do we decide on the urgency? It depends, like urgency, I would say the emergency. I think it means to say emergency. So emergency is, for example, the vaccine, the COVID-19, it is a global emergency, right? But still, we see that each country has to, according to their own rules and regulation, they have to declare within the country that there is an emergency situation. And then when that has been declared, then as we explained in our presentation, there is a special allowance or the flexibility is allowed in our policy, and the same thing is included in our project processing document. So then we allow the shorter period of time in the bidding. Instead of going for the international competitive bidding, we allow for the maybe local bidding, because if the services are available there, instead of going lengthy process, we go for the RFQ, shorter
Buna göre değerlendiriliyor. Bütün bu esneklikler söz konusu. Daha önce de söylediğim gibi bu tür durumlarda mesela bugün tipik örnek bu aşı ile ilgili. Yani ülke uygunluk seviyesini ona göre düzenleyebiliyoruz. Daha fazla esneklik temin edebilmek için ve bu alanı iyileştirebilmek için. Umarım soruya cevap olmuştur. Teşekkürler. Çok teşekkürler.
Are there any PPP, triple P transport projects in ADB's agenda related to transportation? I think.
I think there are some projects in India, if I'm not mistaken. There are some projects on the PPP.
Bertrand, if you want to add, you can.
Oh,
yeah. Okay. Yeah, so this is something that has been looked at and is being looked at. We have to say there is still this example in Manila, and I will not be able to give the detail on the commuter rail between Manila and Clark that has a private sector component. In India, those are also options that are being explored. it's still not the majority of the transport project being supported by ADB, to say it. And we are also looking at a non-sovereign operation that happen in India that cannot be always the case in other countries. So talking about different financing than the sovereign one, but that would take that the local level is strong enough and generates revenue to be able to repay the loan. So those are things also that are being considered. And in Koshi, for instance, there is, for the extension of the metro project, no sovereign loan that is being processed this year. So not a clear answer, but it also reflects the difficulty for the private sector to engage in the sector, but that's something that we are pursuing. I would like to do more.
Okay, Metan, thank you so much. I think we don't have any questions left open, and I don't see any more questions to be answered, because all the presentations was very clear and very comprehensive. So at that stage, I would like to thank you all, I guess. Maybe if there are any of you would like to add something, and I like to kind of ask Mr. Arolo if he has something to add. Otherwise, I will do my job as the closing remarks and close the session.
Hassan Bey, I hope this was really useful for our members, and we have some nice comments too in the comments. So I'm again thankful for this organization to the bank, and I would like to say that we are ready to repeat this when the time comes. Thank you.
Thank you, Başar Bey. So I also join Mr. Arola thanking you for this very useful, fruitful presentations, and because our audience have always interest in the bank and the facilities and the program of the bank. So now they have so much information in their hands to digest. And as I said in the beginning, we will be able to circulate the presentations individually to the participants. We know that bank is doing its best, have a mandate, and we learned that there's 7 operational priorities on the one hand, and the all raising new trends, including the climate change, carbon prints, and everything on the other. There is a delicate balance in the projects that bank finances, because as I understood from the presentations, energy and construction is one of the major fields of activity that bank finances, and on the other hand, all these activities are a source of these new trend climate change issues. So that has to be in the consideration. One thing I have to make a remark that I saw from Rubina's presentation, that Turkey is among the top goods top suppliers of the goods. So that has to be equalized on the works, and Turkey has to do lots to become in the top 5 in the construction business, because Turkey, with the international construction services, #2 in the world. So there is an imbalance to be corrected, I would say, with these presentations. And I stop here and thank you once again, because I think we have tired you, and the people are already has been excited listening to your presentations for the last 2 hours. As Mr. Arol said, we will kindly approach you as deemed necessary to give additional presentations or program when we have needed for improving or further enhancing our mutual cooperations. On behalf of the TCI, thank you once again, ADB, for these presentations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Elif Hanım teşekkürler. Elif Hanım kapatıyorum. İyi günler.